Good evening for you, those of you who are located in the United States, specifically on the East Coast. It's about 11:30 at night. Not my normal broadcast time, but we decided that we were going to make this sort of like a fireside chat. The topic here is going to be a little different, I suppose. Not something that hasn't been spoken about before, and in fact, you'll understand that very quickly as we dive right in. Before I do that, I do want to recognize Brick's latest new tie, which I think really just sets him apart. The content of this particular podcast actually comes from the fact that Brick has spent the majority of his life living between two buildings. One building was a train station. The other building is an office building, where he's gotten to overhear a number of conversations between people, whether it be they're listening in on a conference call or they're having a conversation with somebody. And one of the central themes that he's come across is how there often appears to be this sense of feeling a need to not come across as, for lack of a better word, not to come across as an idiot. But I want to actually share a different perspective, which is the value of being the idiot. Now, I am not the first to do or to even speak of this subject. Being the idiot is something that there are some really amazing individuals out there that have spoken on. My favorite, by the way, is someone that I think most people have heard of these days, a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek. A little bit of trivia. I actually once physically ran into Simon Sinek on the street in New York City. It was probably about 10 or 12 years ago. To this day, I regret not actually at least giving a much more courteous apology and taking the moment to introduce myself, because I am a huge fan. I love Simon's just absolute raw approach to the obvious. And I say the obvious. It's the obvious in many ways, but it's obviously not in so many other ways, because here we are talking about it day in and day out. That being said, let me dive into the concept of being the idiot. So I'm going to start with a couple of quick quotes that will not be unfamiliar to most of you. The first would be, Albert Einstein, another amazing human being. There's a quote that's attributed to him that says, "We cannot solve problems by using the same thinking that created them in the first place." And that's a very valid concept, because if you created the problem with your current way of thinking, the idea of coming up with the solution oftentimes is going to be a futile event. Not entirely impossible, but highly unlikely. Secondarily, another Einstein quote, and this one's really important to the content of what we're talking about here, which is, if you can't explain something simply, then you just simply don't understand it well enough. And while some people may make the argument, well, what if it's a super complex topic? Well, I can tell you this, that even the most complex of topics, especially these days, there are ways to be able to connect with audiences that have difficulty with large, abstract, or very in-depth, complex scenarios. And if the right questions are asked, or if the right analogies are used, or metaphors, you can connect with an audience that may not necessarily truly understand what it is that you do. For example, if you're a rocket scientist, or if you are a particle physicist, there are ways to be able to convey that information. So circling back around, Simon Sinek created a very short video, just a couple of minutes long, where he was describing the value of being the quote unquote idiot in the room. But I want to take it a layer deeper, because while being the idiot in the room does have a tremendous value, there is, I believe, a nuance to being the idiot that helps the rest of the room build up the courage to be able to join you in the idiocy. And it really boils down to what Simon talks about with regard to actually being the idiot and being confident in being the idiot. So, it's not about the term idiot. The idiot sounds like it has a negative connotation. But the point of it is really to say, please simplify this for me. Please make this digestible. And by the way, I'm asking these questions, and something tells me that by my asking these questions, there's a strong likelihood that many people in this room, while they may be nodding their head, or they may be doing worse, just nothing at all, but maybe scribbling little things down on a piece of paper like, please get me out of here, or something along those lines. Those are the things that we are trying to avoid. We are trying to actually get people to be comfortable with saying, hey, listen, I have a question. It may come across to you, the presenter, as dumb, but because you're the expert, I'm going to ask you to take it from your PhD level to my, middle school or elementary school level. Now, I realize that not everyone that I'm referring to in this are their intellect goes down to that level, but if you can get them to explain it down to those terms, I can assure you that you have connected with a much larger audience, an audience that will walk away and actually find that information not only beneficial, but actionable. They'll be able to take it back and say, okay, I just got some really great information on how we can implement a new process, a new technique, a new strategy, a new skill, and I can now tell it to you in a way that makes sense to me, so that I can also convey it to you, and we can begin to make changes, positive changes within our organization. So I really just wanted to touch on this subject because I know that I've been involved in many conversations, and especially like on Zoom calls or something like that, where I will ask a question, and I cannot tell you, I can't even count it on all my fingers and toes how many times I've said, I'd like to ask a question that may seem obvious to the rest of the room, but it really eludes me. And in doing so, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten private messages from people by saying, oh, thank goodness you asked that question, because I literally had no idea what this person was talking about. And that was exactly what I was trying to understand. So there is a value to it, and it's not really meant also for any kind of, faux, I'm acting stupid, so therefore I'll get praise for getting to be bold enough to ask the question. That's not the intent. And if that is your intent, you're going to find that that's going to probably, backfire on you in the long run. But genuinely coming to someone who is a very, very intelligent, very articulate individual about a specific subject matter, and getting them to boil it down into a concept that someone of a much, much smaller intellect can handle, at least on that topic, right? When I say much smaller intellect, that's really going to be critical to whether it's even going to be effective or a giant waste of time. You bring in this consultant, they have a giant bag full of knowledge and experience on how to execute certain really important strategic and or even tactical in some cases, but certainly large-scale implementation projects. And because they go so far over our heads, we nod and then we walk away, and then it gets put up on, I think Simon put it this way, it gets put up on a shelf, never to be seen or heard from again. So think about that. There's quite a few takeaways here, and I'll actually list them in the body of the video after I post it. But I just really want you all to consider the concept of being okay with being the, again, idiot in the room, because that a lot of times breaks down a lot of barriers, and it opens up discussions and makes things much more palatable and executable within an organization. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk soon.